Okay, class. Today we're going to cover lesson 10, configuring Windows. So let's just go and see what the objectives are for this lesson. Here we can see is configure Windows user settings and configure Windows system settings. So this lesson is not to teach you how to use Windows, but to show you where to find the options that are necessary to correct things or to configure things in Windows. So here, configure Windows user settings. So uh, the Windows interface, we can see what the Windows interface looks like. If you're a PC user, you're familiar with the Windows interface. Here we can see that we have the graphical user interface, right, which shows you the icons, and then of course each icon represents an application. It shows you the desktop, as you can see there. At the start menu here at the bottom, right here, you press here, you'll get the options that are available for you to run. You have the taskbar, which is down here, and you can pin applications here so that you can have quick access to them. You do have an instant search, a task view, right here, small, but you can see there that's the task. You see what tasks are running. And you do have a notification area, which is over here on this side. So again, something you already may be familiar with if you are a Windows user. And the Windows interfaces, here again, let's look at this one. You can see here, if you go here to Windows, and you can see what programs or applications are available here in one screen here. So again, this is the main user interface that was introduced in Windows 11. And note that left alignment of the taskbar can be reapplied by adjusting its properties. In other words, you see the taskbar on this one, you see here on the left side, but you can also move it down to the bottom. Whatever, again, is your preference. But again, these are just cosmetic things. The Windows settings, if you go to settings, if you didn't know where to find them, you can always go to the search and type in settings, and it brings you up to your settings. We looked at this last class that we had. So what do we have in settings? You can configure and set your settings for system, network and internet, accounts, and you have the list here. You can look at it. And once you get in there, then you're going to have options that go with each one of these that are listed for you to make whatever necessary changes that you have to make. The Windows settings and control panel, if you go to a control panel, this is what it looks like here, control panel. By going to control panel, you have everything that goes with Windows. This is not a bad place to go because look at what you have. Look, anything you would need to change. Let's just pick some at random. Phone and modem, power options. Remember we talked last class about, conserving the power on your laptop. So, when you charge your battery pack, you don't want it to drain that quick. Well, you can go to power options and you can configure when to turn off, the monitor and so on. Look, mouse, region, whatever goes with Windows, fonts, date and time, and so on. So control panel gives you a lot as well. Account settings, okay. Let's look at what they say about account settings. Local versus Microsoft account, administrator versus standard user, sign-in options, add another user plus family settings. So accounts is what? It's the users that can log into the system, right? And you can set up the accounts that you can specify what type of account, like here when they talk about a local versus Microsoft account. So a local account only has access to the actual machine itself and no more. Microsoft account would have access beyond the local machine, like if you have a small network that's Windows based, and then you can control beyond the local machine. Then the administrator versus the standard user. The standard user is restricted to only certain things, and that's up to you as to what you want to restrict. And then the administrator is the one that has the options to do everything in the system. The sign-in options, right? The user has to type in a user ID and a password, and you have options there that can be configured when they sign in. Complex passwords or simple passwords. Add other users plus family settings. You can do that as well. And here you can see what that screen looks like, user accounts. And right here, you just work with it, whatever user account you want to work with, or if you want to add a new user account. Like here we see James, local account administrator. So James has full control as far as options are concerned on the PC because he's the administrator of the PC. You can set up another account that doesn't have administrator privileges, and then they cannot do as much because you may not want them to go in there and start making changes to what you have configured. Then you have the user accounts control panel applet. So again, you can see here. Privacy settings, another setting you can work with. Data collection, ad and services personalization, speech recognition and typing personalization, diagnostics, activity history, and application permissions. So you can see also what are things you can do under this setting. Here we can see change privacy options, right? For example, says let apps use advertising ID to make ads more interesting. So if you are allowing some of the ads to come and be displayed, you can tweak those and configure that. Allow websites to provide locally relevant content by accessing my language list. If you want that to be activated, set it to on and so on. Again, what's this one? Show me suggested content in the settings application. And again, so you control your privacy to a certain extent here with this setting. Desktop settings, time and language, right? I think that's pretty much understood. We have mentioned this before, if you're like in Houston area, you're in Central Time. So you can set your settings for that. If you're in a different time zone, of course, you can set the settings for the different time zones. Configure regional localization and keyboard layout. Here again, if you are in the US, your keyboard layout might be, the standard the way it's done here in the US. But if you, let's say, in England or in Mexico, they could have something slightly different. Personalization settings, desktop theme, right? You say, I want my desktop, theme to look like this. Have a blue background with darker colored icons or something to that effect. But if you go to the desktop themes, you'll see you get to select the one that you like. Lock screen settings. If you walk away from your computer, you don't want somebody to come and start getting into your system, so you can lock your screen. So when you're not at your desk and your computer's on, for example, if you go to lunch, you don't want somebody coming in there and seeing what you have on your system. And then start and task settings, which that's the taskbar at the bottom, and where that bar is. You can also pin applications to the taskbar, but you also have options in the taskbar that you can open up and look at things. Ease of access settings. Okay, here they say configure input and output settings that are appropriate to user needs. For example, vision, contrast and font scaling, pointer and cursor settings, narrator, magnifier. So you can see here some things that if people have trouble with seeing, very well, then you can help them out. For example, the magnifier. The magnifier, it would be an icon on there where if they need to look at something and the letters are too small for them, they can click on the magnifier and then they can run that magnifier over the sentence or whatever it is that they're looking at. And it's, of course, will be bigger, right? The magnifier, like a magnifying glass, a narrator to speak what's written. And then your pointer and cursor settings as well. if your pointer's moving too fast, you can slow it down, or you can change from the arrow to something that that you like from the options available. The hearing levels, notifications, and closed captioning. Again, you're looking at something again for people that have hearing deficiencies. When you do, for example, a closed caption, you can see the letters. When somebody's speaking this way, you don't hear certain words very clearly. You can at least read them, and it helps with you interpreting what it is that you're looking at. And then interaction, input at device settings, speech control, and eye control. So again, those settings there for display. Well, let me back up a little bit here. The one that they're showing here is display. And then you can see here. Okay, File Explorer. Of course, on our computers, what do we have? We have information, right? So we have files. We have folders to put to be coordinated with our files and then create folders for certain topics and this way you're more organized, right? So if you have you say, this are my videos, so I create a folder by name of videos, and you put all your videos in that folder. This is my folder for certain files, and you put all those files in there, and so on. So you pretty much understand what Explorer is to save your folders and files. And you can see here what that looks like. You see your folders. Folders have files, but you also have files. Could be a standalone, not inside the folder as well. They start out by talking about system, user account, OneDrive account, and this PC network and recycle bin. So these are places where certain things can be stored. Okay, the user account. So the user account, for example, here, if you log in and you log in with your user ID and your password on your computer, then you have certain areas that are linked to your account. For example, the documents folder, the documents entry that you see here. If you log off your computer and somebody else logs in, well, then they're also going to see a document, but that document is one that's linked to their user account. So it would have their files, and they would not be able to see your documents. Okay, so they're separate. Again, linked to the user account. Here they went to this PC. They can see files and folders on this PC. And again, you can have folders, and you can have subfolders. So folders, again, another name would be directories, and you can have subdirectories. So you could create a folder. You could open up that folder, and inside that folder, you can create another folder. So now you have a subfolder or a subdirectory, okay, like a tree structure, as we can see here. Let me expand this so we can see it a little bit better. So you have the C drive, and then under the C drive, you have folders, users, program files, Windows, and within here in Windows, there's subfolders. And within System32 subfolder of Windows, you have more folders, as you can see. Okay, so you have that tree structure, and this is what you would have in Explorer, File Explorer. You have drives, you have folders. Well, the drives is the actual hard drive, as we can see here, right? The C drive, right? And then you have the folders. And then you have the system files. Again, they are in folders, but those files are not applications that you install. This is files that are put out there when you install the operating system. When you install, for example, Windows 10 or Windows 11, it holds the system files. And of course, those files, you don't tamper with them unless you know exactly which ones you have to make changes to. But you would go in there under the direction of some instructions, but just randomly don't go in there and change anything, because you could cause the operating system to fail or not work the way it should work. File Explorer options and indexing options. So here again, we know now what File Explorer is. here they're showing us some advanced options here. So you can do index encrypted files. You can treat similar words with what they call diacritics and different words. Uh, so again, you can see here, so some of the advanced options, if you wanted to have some indexing, normally that would be, so when you're doing a search and you have many files, it'll find what you're searching for much faster. Again, File Explorer, you can see here, open File Explorer to quick access, browse folders, open each folder in the same window. Okay, or open each folder in its own window. So if you open 2 or 3 folders and you want to have them separate, then you would have 3 windows to look at 3 different things at one time, and you could fit them in your screen, on your screen. Or you can have each folder in the same window. So again, a matter of preference class here. Again, what other things can you do here? You can see here, what are they doing here? They say, let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see it better. Display file icon on the thumbnails. If you're doing a list, doing a search or listing files in a folder. Display a file size information. Maybe you run out of disk space. You want to see what files you have, how big they are. So by displaying the file size, it helps a lot. I use that all the time because sometimes I am running out of space, but I would like to know what the size of the files are to see what's eating up my space. So that display helps me a lot. Hidden files and folders. They do not show hidden files, folders, or drives. They show hidden file folders or drives. So certain files, especially like system files, they're hidden and you don't want anybody to see them. Only you, because you're the admin and you know how to get to them. But you don't want regular users to see them because you don't want anybody tampering with those files. They're critical files. They're not supposed to be altered, and if you don't show them, people don't know they're there, so they cannot go in there and tamper with them. What else? Hide empty drives, hide extensions, and hide folder image conflict. So you have more options, and you select again whatever is going to work better for you. Double click to open an item if you wanted to do a double click, or if you want to do a single click. Privacy show recently used files in quick access. Show frequently used folders in quick access. So you can go in there and see a little bit of the history. Let's say somebody else uses a computer, it will show what files were opened. Again, it could be useful if you're concerned about security and maybe about other things. But you begin to see that you have all these different options that can help, make your life easier when you're working day in, day out with your computer system. So we looked at what in this topic? Windows user settings. So like I said before, we're not teaching you Windows. We're just showing you where where to find the settings to configure your Windows to work at its best for you. So we saw the interfaces, the Windows settings and control panel, account settings, privacy settings, desktop settings, ease of access settings, file explorer options, and indexing options. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Okay, topic 10B, configure system settings. So now we know more or less where to find our settings user interface. Now let's go see some things that we can configure. So take a look at that window there and see what it shows. So here for system settings, display, sound and notification settings, power, battery status, and configuration, and then about, support information, and then advanced performance and virtual memory settings. So again, here are settings for your system. So you go there And then, of course, you do know that once you get into those settings, if you say, I need to tweak something with the way my monitor looks, the resolution, I want it to be crisper images, or I want the letters to be bigger. You go in there and you set your resolution, for example, your sound. If you wanted to configure your sound, maybe for instance, you say, I want the default sound for my computer to be at 80%. I don't want it to be 100%. Because then you do have an option at the bottom right corner on the taskbar, but you can always go back to sound and make it 100% if you need it for a certain video that you were watching or something like that. And then you have notification settings, which is also at the bottom right of your taskbar. And anything that the system has to notify you will be displayed there. Power, battery status and configuration. We talked about the battery for your laptop, for example, the last class. Well, that's where you could go in there and you can go and make your config changes. Remember, we said when you're charging your battery in a pack, what are the recommendations? They have a recommended setting, they have a full setting, and they had an intermediate setting, and of course you would select the preference that best works for you, or the option that best works for you, which would be your preference. And then advanced performance and virtual memory settings. So virtual memory, if you recall what it is, remember we said it's space on the hard drive that emulates memory. And if you say, you know what, I want to make the size of my paging file bigger, well, you could go in there and you can expand the size of it. Okay, paging file memory and virtual memory is the same. So these have to do with your system. This is not anything that you install. This comes with your laptop or your desktop for that matter. Update and security settings. So now we're looking at security. So here, again, remember under settings, you have many options or many or multiple entries where you can go in there and configure settings for that particular option. And now you can see here the Windows security. So in the Windows security, again, what can you do there? Keeping the system up to date, patch management. The Windows has automatic updates, and if you wanted to run those on certain days of the week, you can go and you can set that up. And it has other options. If you say notify me before you install the settings, and you have other options. So those would be under the security option of your settings. Built-in Windows security apps, whatever apps are built in, you can also configure those. I know that they have the Windows Defender and they have a Windows Firewall. Okay, you can go in there and configure that to protect your system from viruses, for example, or from unauthorized users. The Windows Update, as I mentioned earlier, you want those to run because Windows updates you want to run. You want to install the latest fixes. And that's what the Windows automatic updates are. They're patches, and they fix any discrepancies or any things that Microsoft finds that are not working properly. So by you doing those, it fixes things that are found frequently by Microsoft. And you can do it two ways. You can schedule it to do it automatically, or you yourself can click on it and say, check for updates, and then once it finds any updates, you can say to install the updates. Again, this is your choice, however you want to set that up. As we said, Windows security, right? Windows. The nice thing about Windows nowadays is that it comes with some protection applications. So Windows Defender, Windows Firewall, and then of course you have Windows activation. So the activation is if you installed Windows, you purchase Windows, you build a new machine, you purchase Windows, you install Windows, put in the product key, and does an install. So now you're good, but you still have to activate it. Okay, otherwise your system would only work for a certain amount of days before it shuts down and it won't run anymore. So you got to activate it. This keeps you in compliance. This verifies that you have a valid product key. In other words, you purchase the product, it's not a pirated copy of the operating system. So activation is, you will find that there as well. Device settings. Here we see hardware device configuration and management. You see here system settings for display and sound. Devices settings for input and peripherals like Bluetooth and USB. Phone settings. Devices and printers applet. And control, and those are on the control panel, I'm sorry. And then you have a device manager. A device manager allows you to work with your devices that are installed. And if you needed to, for example, update some of the drivers, that's when you would go and do that. You can see here, let me expand this so we can see it better. Here under settings, again, you went to devices and look at all the things you can configure under devices here. Your printers, if you had a scanner, right? We talked about Bluetooth and so on. So that's where you would find, those items that can be configured. Okay, let's move on, and now let's look at display and sound settings. So again, we saw that a little bit earlier when we were talking about settings. And again, display settings, scaling, color calibration, multiple displays. You may have on a desktop, you may have two monitors, and that's common. Many users have two monitors because they want to have multiple windows at the same time within their view, because they have to compare things, maybe, for example. And then of course a resolution and refresh rate to give you the best clear image that you can get. And then sound settings, select input like your microphone and output, that you want to configure, whether it goes out to your headphones or to your speakers. You have set and test audio levels, and you have a taskbar volume control. On your taskbar, you do have the volume control, and you may want it to be displayed. So whenever you're listening to some videos, I know this happens to me when I go to some YouTube videos. The video is not as loud as it should be, so I can play with my volume controls. Once I max out the volume of the YouTube video, I can play with the volume control on my system. Or if the volume is too loud, I can also control it with the option that I have on my taskbar, but I need to have that displayed so I can get to it. Power options, we talked about the power options, right? One more time. A good example is you have your battery pack on your laptop. You don't want to drain it if you're not using your system. So here, what can you do? Basic options under system, power and sleep. Advanced options under control panel, power options. You can set up a power plan, sleep, suspend versus standby versus hibernate. Each one of these goes into different modes, and some modes will use less power than others. Close lid action. What do you want to happen when you close a lid? Right? Do you want it to turn off, or do you just want to go into sleep mode or hibernate mode? The fast startup, USB selective suspend. And here, when you get into those options, you can see here, when, as an example, when I press the power button, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to shut down? Do you want it to go to sleep mode, to hibernate mode, or just to turn off the display? When I press the sleep button, which is buttons on your laptop, like I'm seeing mine right now, the top row of keys, what do you want it to do? Can you specify here? Okay, here, they're not showing this, but for example, the power options. The power options like when you set up a power plan. A power plan could be for certain user, you might be more restrictive here, and have it shut down after a minute of of not using your peripherals like your mouse or your keyboard. For other users, you might want to have in the power plant to wait 5 minutes before it goes into hibernate mode. And there's other options within the power plant, and the power plant can be linked to the actual user. Some users have different needs within their power necessities of the battery pack, for example, and you can configure that. What else? Here we see the shutdown settings. Turn on fast startup recommended, a sleep show in power menu, and you can lock your computer, show an account a picture menu to let you know it's in lock, and so on. So again, the power options. Apps, programs, and features. Well, we know we have programs on our computer, we have applications, and we have features that go with Windows as well. So here we have what Windows features. We have store apps that you can buy from the App Store, desktop applications, whatever you have on your desktop for quick access, and the Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL. If you also have an environment where there's also Linux machines, not just Windows. So the app settings, again, app settings page. Uninstall apps, add remove Windows features, set defaults. So uninstall apps. So whenever you don't need an application anymore, you don't want to go to the folder where the application is stored on the program files and delete the folder. You want to do it gracefully the right way, because if you don't, there's going to be a lot of excess that remains on your system. Extraneous information that's just taking up space, and you don't want that to happen. But when you go in to the uninstall, that'll take out the application and everything that goes with that application. Okay, so the uninstall here in the app features, you can see that you would have different options here. Again, you can see what that screen would look like. Here, apps and features. Here they're looking at applications that you have installed on your system. If you would go to one of these and you say, you know what, I don't need a 3D viewer, and you can right click and you're going to see an option to uninstall. If you said, I don't need it anymore, I want to get rid of it. Others, they install the basic components that are used 90% of the time. But sometimes there could be other features that you may need. So when you go to that app, and you can select to install the additional features as well. So again, this is where you would find it under the app settings. The control panel applets, programs and features. Again, and you have your mail, for email as well. So and then you have your game settings page if you're a gamer. So one more time, you go to your app settings for that. Like here, you want to set some defaults where you want certain things to be maybe on your screen at all times, or on your taskbar, or wherever you would like to have that. So again, it's just another place where you can go to make the computer fit your preferences, and also for functionality to serve your needs. Network settings, another one, right? You're going to be working in an environment, more than likely it's going to be networked. You can see here what can you do there. Network adapter types and configuration. So Ethernet is something to do with networking, right? The Wi-Fi, cellular, radio, and the virtual private network. We said where you could be working from home and you can connect to your company to be able to get to the resources to do your job. We also talked about that last class, the VPN. So those are some other things that you can go in there and set up or configure. An internet protocol, the IP and network trust, the public, private, or domain. How much trust do you want to put within your network, right? If you want to have access only to certain individuals within your organization. You want to set it to private, so you don't want to have any accessibility from the outside. Uh, or if it's a domain environment where you could have multiple offices, but you want all of them to see each other in the network, you can select that. So here, depending on what the network needs are, is how you could configure that. Network and internet settings, the adapter status and configuration, right? The adapter, you go there and you set it up, right? You got to configure the adapter, correct? The IP address, the subnet mask, the default gateway. That we covered that in the networking chapter. And then you have network connection applet, legacy interface for adapter status and configuration. So if you have an older operating system, for example, which is unlikely now because Windows doesn't support the older operating systems. But if you did, it's still an applet for you to go and get to the network interface to do any changes that you have to make. And you have network and sharing center and advanced sharing settings applets. Again, that has to do with the network. Do you want to make files and folders available to other users within the network? There could be a folder that has files that are needed by multiple users. Well, in that case, that folder could be shared. If it's shared, then it's going to ask who are the users that need access to this folder, and then you go in there. You click on the drop down. It has a list of all the user accounts of the users that are on the network, and you select the users that need to have access. And now those users can access that folder. So you're sharing the resources. And then you have the Windows Defender firewall. We talked a little bit earlier about security. It's a firewall. So again, it protects your computer. It's what they call a host-based firewall because it's only protecting your computer. But nonetheless, it's protecting it, which is a good thing. So you just configure what you want to allow to come into your computer and what you want to block. Normally, the way you would do a network firewall that protects the whole network. Firewalls are firewalls. They have the same protection controls. So you have that. And then you have the Internet Options applet, Internet Explorer browser settings, and the Internet Options applet, which is, for instance, Microsoft Edge, which is your browser, right? Like Internet Explorer. And you can specify, it does have certain things you can control there, like how open do you want to have it to allow anything to come in from the network into your browser when you're browsing the internet, and you can have it more restricted, where certain sites that are deemed unsafe would be blocked as well. So you have those options. Administrative tools. So administrative tools allows you to control a lot of things that have to do with your computer, such as hard drives, for example. But let's see here. Let's look at the bullets here. You have computer management, defrag, and optimize drive. So you remember what defrag was, where you take all the files that are fragmented, that are not contiguous. It'll shuffle things around and make the file to be contiguous because you get better performance. Well, that's an option that you would find in the management console. Disk cleanup. Like I said, sometimes there's extraneous files that remain on your system. They're not needed. When you do the disk cleanup, the computer goes there and checks and see that they're orphaned files. They're not linked to anything, any application or any folders. Those are the kind of things that it looks for to get rid of, because all these files in time will start using up your disk space, and you get to the point that you could run out of disk space. And why have that clutter? It's clutter. You want to get rid of it. I know I did it one time on mine, and it freed up like 400 meg. A good chunk of space. And then you have the event viewer. The event viewer is where logs are kept and updated with events that occur. Event viewer. And in the event viewer, make it a point, or I make it a point, to every morning go look at it, and it'll show you if any events have occurred that could cause you some problems. So the events could be informational only. Those would have an eye. It could be a warning. Those would have a yellow dot with an exclamation mark, represents a warning. Hey, this could be a potential problem. Look at it. And then you can have the actual errors. That will be a red dot with an X. So event viewer is a good one to look at, especially if you're troubleshooting. Somebody reports a problem. Uh, it's not. It's not a bad idea to go to the computer, look at the event viewer, see if anything got recorded in there, any event that could give you a clue as to what the problem happens to be. And then you have the local security policy. The local security policy is where you put controls on your system. For example, if somebody puts in the wrong password 3 consecutive times, you could lock them out. You could say, we're not going to allow you to log in until 15 minutes have gone by. So in essence, it's a little form of punishment, a slapping their hand. You got to remember your password. After 15 minutes go by, you could have it. You can try 3 more times. If you fail, we'll lock you out again for 15 minutes. But you control that, whether you want it 15 minutes, whether you want 30 minutes, or whatever the case may be. And then you have a resource monitor and performance monitoring. This is a really good one, class, because this one will show the utilization of the resources of your system. If you say a system's running a little bit slow, what's going on? You go to resource monitor, and it has objects, which are things on your computer like memory, like the CPU, and you can specify to look at the performance of it or the utilization of it, and it could tell you that the CPU is being utilized at 90%. You say, well, why is it consuming so much of my CPU? You might have to investigate that, or it might just be something that lasts only 10 seconds. It goes back down to normal levels. Then that might be considered okay. But again, it's just for you to check how much the system is being used. And if the utilization is very high on all the objects like memory, CPU, hard drive, all that, then look at what's going on. We say, well, yeah, it's correct because I'm running this database application that's very resource intensive. And once that application finishes, terminates, and if everything goes back down to normal, then of course you don't have to be concerned. But if you're not doing these type of applications, there's something for you to research. The registry again is a very critical area of your system. It's where all the configuration of your system is stored. You don't want to go in there and tamper with anything. The only time you go into the registry is if you're installing a new application and they tell you to go into the registry, and then in the registry and they tell you what hive and what key to go into, and these are entries in the registry. And then once you find it, they could say change the 0 to a 1, for example, and then you save the registry. But again, you're going under the direction of someone that knows what needs to be changed. The services again is where you could go in there, and everything that runs on your system has a service connected to it. If something wasn't running, for example, you said, my printer, everything is set up correctly. Why is it not printing? Well, you could go into services and look for it's called the spooler, which is the print spooler, what holds the print jobs. And it could say stopped. If it says stopped, that means the service is not running. For the functionality of your system, for everything that's supposed to run, a service has to be connected to it that is in running a mode. So you see it stopped, you right click, and then it has the option to start, and then you start it. So that you would find in your services, that start and stop. And then you have the task scheduler. This is really nice because you can go in there and you can specify to run a certain program at a certain time. Let's say that you had to do backups. but you had to wait to do your backups when everybody's off, because you don't want to start doing backups when people are still working on their computers on the network. Okay, so you say, yeah, but some users work late. They stay till about 8 or 9, especially at month end, where the accountants are working very late because they have to, close out the month, things like that. And you say, and I got to do the backups. So what you could do is, and I used to do this. What you could do is, you could go and mount your storage backup medium. For example, your tape drive. Okay, that's what you're going to copy. You're going to do the backup. So I would put it on the tape drive, and then I would leave it to on, and then I would go to task scheduler, and I would specify the name of the backup program, and I would configure it to run at 1 a.m. in the morning. So this way I say at 1 a.m. everybody's gone. Okay, and then my backup automatically would start like if I was there doing running the application. So this one comes in handy for certain things that have to be done and you're not around. It can launch them for you automatically. So all these essential tools you can find under administrative tools. Here you can see what the icons look like. So let's expand it so you can get a better view of it. You can see, you go to administrative tools here, and there you can see computer management. If you go to computer management, again, you get to see things that are related to your computer. Remember I said defragment, to have the files that are split up, put back together to be contiguous, the disk cleanup. Other options, Hyper-V, you're going to be doing virtualization, the local security policy, like I said, 3 invalid logins consecutive, well, going to lock you out, as I mentioned. The performance, you can see the performance. The performance is saying it's at 90%, busy. You say, why? Why so intensive? I'm not running anything. Well, question that. Maybe there's a virus that's throwing out a lot of garbage on your system, but it's still, the fact of the matter is that performance, it gives you a clue that something is not right. Now, if it was something, like I said, that you were running and it's very resource intensive, then it makes sense. It's okay, yeah, once this finishes, it'll go back down to normal levels of 30 to 35%. Okay, so you can manage your printer. You can go to the printer here and see what print jobs are printing. And when I say what print jobs are printing, because stop and think about it, class. If it's the accounting department and you have 20 people that work in accounting, they're all sending out to the printer, right? So it holds it in the print queue, and you can go see, and you can see how many jobs are waiting to be printed. And sometimes a print job could whatever thing caused it to create to crash, it'll be in pause mode. And if that job is in pause mode, then the other jobs cannot be flushed out because that one's holding everything. It's holding up the line, in other words. So you got to go see, and you can delete it and then tell the user rerun your job. It canceled. We don't know the reason, but it was holding up 20 jobs that were waiting to be printed. Those are some of the things that you can go into the print queue that you will find if you go to print management. The registry, to get into the registry, it has a lot of entries that are configuration settings. Those are the current configurations of your computer system. Resource monitor we set, and the performance, and again, all these, the task scheduler, right? You say, I'm not going to wait till 1 o'clock to run my backup. I'll just schedule it. It could be any application. It doesn't have to be a backup, anything that you need to run at a certain time. Or for that matter, you say, I'm going to have to go to a meeting that's going to last 3 hours, and I have to run this at 3 p.m. and the meeting is not going to be over till 5. Well, you might want to set that application to run at 3 for you. So, and then memory diagnostics, you can see the firewall that's built into Windows. So really good area here, class. In computer management, by the way, as once you get in there, you'll get to see your disk drives as well. and it shows you how much space each drive has and how many disk drives you have right here. One a picture will show it all. So keep this one in mind. Administrative tools, and the reason that I say keep this one in mind is because you are the technician. You are the one that really will have a need to go here, not your average users. The average users are not tweaking the systems. You are. So this is a place for you to go right here. Excuse me, some management shortcuts. If you press the start in DX, the start is that Windows logo on the left of the spacebar that looks like the four little blocks, four little squares, looks like Microsoft Windows, and then the X that'll pull up the start menu. You know, when you click start right, it gives you a list of all the programs on your system for you to click on the one you want to run. This is just a shortcut. If you want to search for something, uh, at the search at the bottom, you just type whatever you want to search for, and it'll pull it up. The start, the start X at instant search, the start R is for shortcut menus, whichever ones you have, it'll show you the shortcuts as well. So again, this is just you know, really to get you to the to a list of options a little bit faster. It's just a matter of preference, and if you get used to using that, I'll be honest with you, I hardly ever use those because I'm so used to going to start, getting my list pop up, and then select from there. Or I have the ones I use most of the time on my taskbar or on my desktop. So I hardly ever use these because I've configured my system a different way for me to get there fast as well. But again, it's just an option that's there for you if you want to use it. So class, here, what did we look at here? We looked at Windows System Settings. We looked at Update and Security Settings, Device, Display, and Sound Settings, Power Options, Apps, Programs, Features, and App Settings, Network Settings, Administrative Tools, and management shortcuts. So as I said, this is not a lesson to teach you Windows. It assumes you know Windows already, which you guys already know Windows. If you're a Mac user, then you know Mac. Of course, you would not know Windows. But again, it's just how to use the user interfaces of the operating system. In this case, it's the Windows operating system. Now you have a very, very good idea where to find the options that you need, because now you know where they're located. Okay, hence right here, configuring Windows and finding where to get to the actual settings, to get to to the configuration settings. So anyway, class, a pretty straightforward chapter, just making you aware of where you can find the settings for whatever it is that you have to configure. In Windows, as you saw, has many of them. A lot of them are very, very helpful to us. The other ones are very necessary, right, to make your system operate the way it should. But anyway, good for you to know, because you will be working with an operating system to support the users, and users don't know what these options are. And when something doesn't work well, you have to go in there and set it to a workable setting. And again, the user will not be able to do that. Also, because we can restrict the users, right here we looked at user accounts. If it's a standard user, he's not going to have access to a lot of these settings. Only the admins and the people that have admin permissions and privileges. And those would be you all, because you're the ones that have to support the environments. So anyway, class, I will be sending you the labs for this lesson. And this concludes our lecture for the day. And we'll go ahead and break for lab.